I may be small, but I am strong. I grow where others cannot. I thrive in harsh and dry conditions, providing food when other harvests fail. I nurture soils and ecosystems and boost biodiversity. I am nutritious and delicious and highly diverse in types and flavors. Rooted in ancient cultures and traditions, I am a powerful source of innovation. I want to share my benefits widely with all people and the planet. But I cannot do it alone, so bring me back to your table. I am Millets.
Very good morning to the audience and all my learners. Today we are going to have a short session when I'm going to be talking about millets. Before I go any further, let me introduce myself. I am Ranjini Dutta and I would be leading today's session about millets. Now, we've all heard the name of millets from ages now, but the question might arise as to why suddenly this interest in millets. Um, in 1960, when the Green Revolution happened, there was a tremendous focus on developing the mini kit for rice, developing various kind of variants for wheat, and all this was done so that the teeming millions of Indians could be fed. But not much of an what does one say? Not much of a focus was given to millets. Uh, Probably that is one of the reasons why many of the food scientists feel that despite having a green revolution, despite having high variety, high variant of faster growing staple crops like rice and wheat, we still have those hungry teeming millions. Now, the reason is actually very simple. Rice, wheat, and corn, these kinds of crops, they require delicate handling, specific kind of a temperature, specific cultivation techniques. Like, for example, one can say rice requires transplantations, wheat required water during the time of plantation, then a completely cold and arid temperature during harvesting, so long and so forth. And millet has always been that neglected crop. Now, this focus on millet had not started just in the year 2023, though you would all be happy to know, and we are also very happy that in the G20 summit, uh, the year 2023 has been declared as the International Year of Millet. This focus on millet by India started in the year 2018. Um, Initially, millet was thought to be a poor man's diet. People who were well off did not actually go in for millet. Now, slowly, with the change in the diet pattern, with the increased awareness of dietary requirements, with dietitians coming into play and health sector giving a very big space to dietitians, millets are finding their proper respect. Now, as we all know, that millet is a kind of a crop that can very well grow in semi-arid regions. And in India, the places where millet can grow in the semi-arid regions are, of course, Rajasthan, places of Haryana, the Kutch and the Kambat Peninsular region of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and also the overflooded regions of Assam, Tripura. So, actually, millet is a kind of a crop that can grow in both extreme diurnal variations of temperature and extreme aridness to extreme flooded situation. So, this quality of millet makes it quite priceless for a country like India, which is still trying its level best to become a first world country. We are not yet a first world country, but I believe with the kind of efforts that we are all putting in, it won't be long that we too will become a first world country. In fact, it would be very funny to know that Mr. Narendra Modi, when he had gone to the White House for a reception, a millet salad was presented to him as a part of the food festival that was ongoing at that point of time. Now, let us see why millet was a little unpopular as far as uh, eating was concerned, human consumption was concerned. Uh, Mostly, millet was either the poor man's food, or in places where rice and wheat grew adequately, millet was given to the animal husbandry. It was used as fodder. Now, that being the reason being, the millet, each pulses of millet has a very hard cellulose covering. Now, this very hard cellulose covering makes it a little difficult to be boiled or to be peeled, whatever the case may be, and therefore, many people avoided using it because it required more of fuel to boil it for a longer period of time. And secondly, most of the millets were found growing in the wilds. In fact, it is a common knowledge that even before man had settled down in the Neolithical period, a very hard cellulose covering. Now, this very hard cellulose covering makes it a little difficult to be boiled or to be peeled, whatever the case may be, and therefore, many people avoided using it because it required more of fuel to boil it for a longer period of time. And secondly, most of the millets were found growing in the wilds. In fact, it is a common knowledge that even before man had settled down in the Neolithical period, when they had started agriculture, millets were already around when rice and wheat was still yet to make an appearance. So millet has been around for a long time. And our forefathers knew the use of millet. And as everything says that everything in life happens in a circle, today once again millet are coming back as superfood. Today, if you go to the supermarket, we would find that millets like jowar, bajra, and the many more, the rice, the pearl millet, the koki millet, all these, the flaxseed millets, all these are considered to be superfood. The ragi, these are considered to be superfoods, and you get multigrain atta where flours of these millets are mixed with your atta to make your atta more healthy, more nutritious. That is happening because technology has developed, which has made processing the millet, that hard cellulose covering, which has been the protective layer which has allowed millet to grow in arid, semi-arid and waterlogged condition, can be easily now removed or can be now easily processed. Now, what are the various nutritional components that one can get in millet? Okay, before I go into the various kinds of nutrients that we can get from millets, let me tell you what are the various kinds of millets that are usually available in India. Now, these various kinds of millets that are usually available in India are the ones which are the followings. The one which is the most common is the bajra. Bajra, if you go for the English name for it, is the barnyard millet, which is very much common in Orissa, in Karnataka and all that. Finger millet is another one which is very good. The common name for finger millet is ragi. Now, once again, grown in Kannada, in Tamil Nadu, and these areas. The foxtail millet, which is very, very rich in minerals and vitamins, is known as Kira in Telugu, is known as Thinna in Malayalam, and it is known as Kangni is Hindi. This kind of millet, along being grown in Tamil Nadu, is also found in the hilly regions of Himachal Pradesh. In fact, one of their main dal, which is a very popular kind of dal, which will be served every time you go to an Himachali home or you go to an Himachali feast, will be containing this particular millet. The small millet, as they call it, is a part of a millet which is called so because of its miniature formation. This particular millet is very rich in iron and fibers, and this once again also has many regional names, and these are known as kutki, small in Hindi. We say kutki, choti in Hindi, and Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, these are the places where these millets are grown in the wild. You can find these millets in the wild. Then, of course, there is the proso millet, which is also known as the bari in Hindi, and this is once again found in the southern part of India. Alongside, it is also found in the northeastern part of India, where there is lots of flooding. This particular millet can actually undergo winter rains. Like we all know that Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, these regions have something which is known as winter rains. So this proso millet can actually, or bari millet as it is called in Hindi, can undergo or can withstand, instead of saying undergo, it will be better to say withstand this kind of an extreme climate. And as I already mentioned, bajra and jowar are the ones that can stand extreme diurnal changes in temperature, which means extreme heat in the morning and extreme cold in the night. And finally, of course, we come to what I was saying from the beginning, pearl millet, bajra, which I guess need to explain again, a very good source of calcium, a very good source of magnesium, and all of these together has to come back as superfood. If you go to the market, you'll find all these have been milled, their hard cellulose covering removed, mixed and sold as superfood, and they're pretty expensive. So what the Indian government plans to do is make technology available to everybody so that these millets no longer remain food which is only meant for the super rich to get from the shelves of the supermarket, rather a kind of a food that every hungry Indian, those teeming hungry Indians that I've been talking about, whom we need to feed, they have access to them. They already had access to them, but they were not actually aware of the goodness of this millet. Another thing about which is very good about this millet is these millets have a very short growing period. I mean, most of them can grow within 60 to 65 days, and so when in between your kharif and your monsoon crop, your uh, uh, kharif, which is your monsoon crop, and your ravi, which is your winter crop. In between your kharif and your ravi crop, at least 2 or 3 um, variants of millets could be cultivated in the same field, and many of these millets are also a source of nitrifying bacteria. I mean, they have in their roots some forms of bacteria which helps in increasing the nitrogen content of the soil in which they are grown. Now, how this benefits the main staples is uh, for the proper growth of rice, for the proper growth of wheat, the plants along with water needs various kinds of minerals, and amongst these minerals are mainly nitrogen containing minerals, and which they draw from the soil along with water. So these nitrifying bacteria which are present in the roots of these legumes and millets nitrify the soil pretty well, and they make the soil once again, which had been maybe unfertile, fertile, and um, feasible enough to be used for the growing of the staples of the region. So you can understand that, the plants along with water needs various kinds of minerals, and amongst these minerals are mainly nitrogen containing minerals, and which they draw from the soil along with water. So these nitrifying bacteria which are present in the roots of these legumes and millets nitrify the soil pretty well, and they make the soil once again, which had been maybe unfertile, fertile, and feasible enough to be used for the growing of the staples of the region. So you can understand that, less than 60% of our Gangetic plains are used for the cultivation of the staples. So around 40% of it is left where these millets can be cultivated, and you can understand that how huge an amount that would be. Besides, these millets would not require strenuous methods of cultivation, would not require a complicated irrigation method, would not require vermicompost, and they will feed our teeming millions not only by filling up their stomach through their fiber content, but also be a fantastic fantastic source of the micro and nutrients, both in the cases of vitamins and minerals, which today has been found one of the main cause of malnutrition in India. The cases of kwashiorkor, cases of marasmus as a whole is going down in India. But as you all might be knowing or might not be knowing, malnutrition actually can be defined in 4 forms. Other than undernutrition and overnutrition, a problem with the very poor and the super rich, the another 2 problem is imbalance and specific nutrient deficiency. The specific nutrient deficiency deals with basically the loss of or the improper intake of vitamins and minerals. And this specific nutrient deficiency causes things like night blindness, phrenoderma or poddokata as we call it in Bengali, chillosis, gingivitis, bowing of neck, and so many other problems. Okay, while I was on the subject of talking about the nutrient variation, the nutrient capacity of this millet, let us talk about the three main millets that India or the Prime Minister Yojana is focusing in the year 2023. The first of it is ragi. This ragi is grown extensively in all the dry areas of India, especially in the southern area and in the rural population, mostly in the rural population of the southern India. Ragi, as every nutritionist would know, is a very good source of calcium and protein, along with vitamin A, vitamin B, and phosphorus. It also has a very high fiber content, which not only helps with your constipation, high blood pressure, it also helps in giving an early satiety, so that the teeming millions of teeming hungry mouths can easily be provided satiety, could be given a stomachful meal if they can be taught to consume ragi without considering it a poorer variant of food to be eaten. Along with that, ragi has also demonstrated, studies have shown that ragi is demonstrating a fantastic way of diabetes control by controlling the early morning surges of sugar rising, which is otherwise known as the somogi level, and therefore for hyperglycemic it can be quite a boon. Now we come to bajra or the pearl millet. Now this pearl millet, one of the fantastic thing about this is it is gluten free. You would be knowing that most of the Asian population, most of the Indian population, after a certain age starts developing an intolerance towards gluten. And in the Western countries, gluten intolerance is seen from a very early age, while in India too, gluten intolerance starts developing. Celiac sprue, celiac disease, you must have heard of these names. They start developing as our age develops. Now, this being gluten free, and because it retains its alkaline property even after being cooked, it is ideal for those kind of patients who have this gluten allergy, which means if you are having a bread or a chapati which is made of bajra, very likely you would not be suffering from the bloating, from the nauseatic feeling, the feeling of fullness and discomfort in your stomach, which you normally feel after consuming normal wheat made chapatis. Another very critically important part of this food and a very important part of our national security is bajra can be grown almost throughout the year and has a very high drought tolerance. So in this way, when there are natural calamities such as droughts, famines, or even when there is waterlogging, bajra will survive, and they can become a huge part of national food security. National food security just does not mean providing food to the population who is vulnerable, that is the mother and child. National food security would include feeding each one and everyone. I mean, we have all seen during Corona how national food security had become a question of huge concern. And in those times, if bajra could have been made more rampantly available, maybe we could have had less amount of immigration of those workers from one place to another in search of food, and that would have probably saved thousands and thousands of deaths. The third that I wanted to talk about, which actually the government is paying an attention of, I've already spoken to you about the various millets which grows in India, but as I was mentioning earlier, that there are three specific millets that the government is currently focusing on, and of course in due time even the other millets will be taken up into consideration. That is being the a very minor millet, which is also known as the proso millet. Now this proso millet once again is a millet that can go during the drought conditions and grows in a very short period of time. It doesn't even take 65 days. It has been seen that many variants can grow within even 40 days and grow in fields that has been declared, as they say in Hindi, banjar, or completely unfertile. And proso millet surprisingly has the capacity to reduce cholesterol, and by reducing cholesterol it reduces the problem of heart disease. So if this proso millet is also mixed up with those kinds of foods, with atta or other foods like iron supplements or things like that, sugar, salt, things which can act as its career. All food cannot act as a career for all food. There are certain specifications. We'll not go into that details today, as I'm talking just about millet. If they can be mixed with it, atta was one of the first career that came to my mind, so I mentioned that. That can help in preventing coronary artery disease and can help in preventing, miraculously, breast cancer. You would probably be shocked to know that 1 out of every 5 Indian females today are suffering from symptoms of breast cancer. So, consuming this millets, one can say that not only are we living a comparative gluten-free life, but also we are controlling the amount of carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates and fatty acids that we are giving to our body, because these millets are so high in fiber that simple carbohydrate contents of these are very less. And as far as fatty acids are concerned, they contain a lot of short chain fatty acids. We all know that short chain fatty acids, they escape the portal circulation, and often can be given in times when the patient is having a diarrheal disorder. Barley, as we all know, barley or bajra stew or bajra soup can be given at these times, so that when the patient is suffering from diarrhea or vomiting and is losing magnesium and zinc at a very high pace from the body, this millets could come to what does one say, millet can come to be of huge help. So friends, if I quickly come to the conclusion of my little discourse, and if I try to sum up everything that I've been saying so far, I can quickly say these things and sum it up. Firstly, 2023 has been declared as the International Year of Millet, and this suggestion was of course made by the Indian government, and millet is now in vogue both in the middle class, upper middle class society, and the government is trying their level best to make the lower class society, who has a far more access to millet, to understand the value of millet. Like as we say that instead of having pomegranate to increase your blood, it is better to have a simple papaya, a ripe papaya, which has vitamin A and will help in your A list synthesis, which in turn helps with your heme synthesis. So a ripe papaya helps more in your heme formation than pomegranate, where the red color comes from various flavonoids and not iron containing fruit. So though that's more costly, a ripe papaya is far more beneficial. And in fact, this is probably the reason why, because of its high nutritional value, which I've been explaining till now, millets are often being called nutri-cereals. This is a term that is getting coined and is being repeated again and again. Of course, this term has been coined by the government of India. It is being called nutri-cereals, and many organizations are now slowly trying to influence people to adapt millet as a kind of the staple instead of using the traditional rice or wheat. And in this light of things, government of India has suggested that we collaborate with FAO, that is the Food and Agricultural Organization, and in the 75th Assembly of the UN, the General Assembly of the UN, 70 nations we've been able to convince 70 nations to accept this as the year of the millet and spread not only in India, all over the world, the importance of millet and how they can help every third world country, not just a developing and or almost a first world country like India, but even third world countries like Puerto Rico, like Guatemala, like Bangladesh, where this is far more needed than we do. And what are the objectives that the government of India is stressing to make this an international year of millet? Well, that is firstly, of course, to elevate the awareness of the contribution of millet as a superfood, as a nutri-cereal, as I maintained it, and also how it can help a country maintain its food security. Secondly, it is trying to convince the stakeholders, that is the various governments, the various agro industries, about the sustainability of these products, how these products do not require fancy growing techniques, do not require fancy cold storage to be kept. They can grow from anywhere between 8 degrees to 47 degrees centigrade, can require as much as 20 ml of water to 40 ml of water, therefore can become a very good value adding product for their stakeholders. And of course, through various research and development, how we can achieve millets which would be easier, even furthermore easier to reduce the cooking process, so that the hard cellulose covering which helps to protect these millets could be easily removed, and the digestibility quotient of these millets go up, and these millets can be easily digested, and we can get all the good nutrient, all the good beneficiary effects that these superfoods or this nutri-cereal has in offer to us. A small little trivia before I end my discourse. Millets actually belong to group of a cereal grain which belongs to the Panaceae family. Why I call this a trivia? Because Panaceae and Hygeia are the two daughters of Asclepius, who are associated with hygiene and good health. Panacea especially has been related to nutrition, has been related to good recovery after surgery. So it is quite a surprising fact that millet belongs to this family of Panacea, And as I was mentioning before earlier, if you could remember, that even before man knew how to cultivate rice and wheat, man, though did not know, millet was round. Millet was there in the wild. It going back to the Neolithical period, or probably even to the Paleolithical period, almost 7,000 years before we settled down and from hunters became an agriculture based Homo sapiens. And of course, in countries like Africa and India, millet had its due respect being given to it, especially in places like Rajasthan and in southern India. But we need to take it worldwide. Another thing, we need to ensure that once again, like basmati rice, like turmeric, like many other things which has been indigenous to India, does not get patented or copyrighted by the Western world, and our own bajra or our own ragi does not come back in a fancy packaging to our own supermarkets, and we don't buy something which is grown in the Indian wild with tons of rupees. And with this, I would like to complete my discourse. A very happy Diwali to everybody, and do give this nutritious cereal or nutri-cereal a try. Buy the flours, or get the flours from the chakki or local chakki to have them grounded into flours. Mix them in your atta and give it a try. I can tell you, you won't be disappointed. Thank you very much.